crashing out, for literal lack of a better word. It definitely could be one of my favorite books of the year. He is a saucy man if I ever did see one. Good morning. Well, actually it doesn't matter what time it is that I'm starting my day, because you're gonna see this at a different time. But hi, it is morning. It's just very, very late morning, and I haven't been on the channel for a very long time, so let's talk about it. But first, before we talk about it, let's talk about what we're doing here today, which is finishing my TBR for 2024, which honestly I can't remember if I really had a proper TBR. And now that I'm thinking about it, like, I definitely had a TBR halfway through the year, maybe in June, where like these are the books that I wanted to read for the rest of the year. But at the beginning of the year I didn't have a TBR, and I definitely didn't finish that TBR from June. But I've read a good few books on whatever, and we'll talk about that in another video. But there are a few books that weren't like officially on any list, but I knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to either complete. And yes, I say complete because there are books that I started reading since last year that have never been finished. So this year was crazy, but we'll talk about it. So actually, let me do my skincare and let's talk about it. Okay, so without getting into too much grave detail, the last time you would have seen me was maybe in July or August, and definitely not August, so maybe July, when I was waiting for my internship to start. So I had a postgraduate internship at a law firm. I'm now an attorney, and so I can't technically be an intern anymore. So before I got called, which was last 2 weeks, I was working an internship and I really loved it, and it was so good. Yeah, I really loved it. It was such a good experience. However, it was time consuming, and not to say time consuming in a bad way. I honestly really enjoyed it. I had a really good experience, which I know a lot of my colleagues and a lot of law interns around the world can't relate to. So, you know, I had a really good experience. The people that I worked with were so nice. The work that I did was so good, and I learned so much. But it did take up 8, 9, 10 hours of my day. So I really didn't have a lot of time to read or anything, because I also got engaged. So okay, I feel like we are all over the place. So at the beginning of August I started my internship, and then before I even signed on to the internship, I told my seniors that I had a trip planned, which I did, to Dominica with my 2 friends and my then boyfriend, now fiance. On this trip we got engaged, which was on the 21st of August. So I've been engaged for about not 2. At this point it's almost 4 months. September, October, November, December. Yeah, almost 4 months that we've been engaged, which is crazy. So yeah, it's been a lot going on in the past 4 months, and our wedding is soonish. I don't want to say too much because it's personal and private, but the wedding is soon, and so we've been wedding planning while I was working, preparing to be called to the bar, and, you know, trying to have a social life, trying to work out, all of those things. By the time I was home in the evening, I wanted to do nothing. I didn't even want to read a book because all day I was reading. So I really have not read a lot in the past few months, maybe 3 to 4 books max. But I'm back in it right now. I'm job hunting and wedding planning, but I've also done, I would say, majority of the wedding planning. All of the big stuff is done. So I feel like right now I'm in a moment in time where things are very chill, and I don't know how long it will last. So I thought I would pick back up my camera because I loved it so much. I had so much fun doing it, but it was, I don't know, I kind of psyched myself out of doing it because honestly most of my day was work. I couldn't film anything while I was on work, and there was nothing interesting to be filmed when I was on work anyway. So that taking up such a big part of my life made it really hard to find anything interesting to like vlog about or talk about or anything really. So I really didn't get a lot of content or a lot of inspiration during that period of time, but right now in this downtime period we have nothing but time, which is so fun, and I've decided to change my perspective on like the anxiety of not being sure when I will get an offer or something, and I'm turning it into something positive. This is fun, and it's a time that I may not get for a very long time again. So I'm just trying to embrace it and enjoy it and read a lot, watch a lot of TV, do something fun, which is my channel, which I really did enjoy for the time that I did it, and work out a lot. I've been walking every single day, getting my 10,000 steps. Yeah, I feel like I'm in a really good place right now. So this is the perfect time to pick the camera back up and start. So that is a long-winded way of saying I'm back. That's where I've been, and now we can talk about what we are doing today, which is finishing, or I can't say my TBR. So what we're doing is finishing books that I've either started this year or books that I really wanted to get to this year that I didn't. I'm gonna start with this one, which is City of Gales by Elizabeth Gills. Is it? Gilbert. Yeah, not me about to say Elizabeth Gillies from Victorious, but yeah, this one I've had on my radar and on my TBR for a very long time at this point, and I feel like it's just something that will be fun, fast-paced. Hopefully, I'm very interested to see like the vibe and the tone and the setting of this, because I think this is like old New York, old Hollywood type of vibe, and I think I would love that. And I also feel like it's very, anything New York feels very Christmas, December-esque to me, so this is one of them. Next is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I've wanted to read this book since it came out, and I've had it on my TBR. Like, it's been sitting next to my reading chair since I've gotten it, to be honest, and I've honestly just never felt the pull to read it, and I know so many people have said it was so good, but I've just never had the personal urge to read it. But I do want to get it because I've read, I think, 2 books by Abby Jimenez, and I really enjoyed both of them. So I think when I'm in the mood for like a straight up romance, but I know this is more emotional romance, but when I'm in the mood for a romance, I will definitely gravitate towards this one. The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. I'm a huge Kristin Hannah stan, and I've never read this book, so I honestly just kind of want to get to it. And anything Kristin Hannah feels very end of year, beginning of year to me. I have no reason for it except that I feel like all of the other books I've read by her I read during that period of time. So yeah, I definitely want to get to this, but this one is chunky, and so are the next 2 books on my list. So this one is a victim of sun damage, so don't look at the cover, but Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. I've been reading this book for a very long time, since June, and I've never finished it, and it's very strange because I've enjoyed it a lot. I was very, very heavily obsessed with this book while I was reading it, and every time I pick it up, I love it a lot, and I just have not finished it because of time. So I think this is the one that I want to finish now. I am about 300 pages in, and it's a 700 page book. No, it's a 600 page book, so I'm exactly halfway through it, and I honestly think I could finish it within the next 2 days if I really lock in. But I have been enjoying it a lot. I actually was filming a full reading vlog of this book, so I have a lot of thoughts and, you know, feelings recorded on this book. It may never see the light of day. Please excuse my voice, I have no idea what is happening. But anyway, I've made a little bit of progress in Swordcatcher, and I'm loving it a lot, to be honest. I feel like there is a lot of political intrigue in this book. I think that that's kind of the driving force of this book for me right now, because the characters, I think that the main characters, at least the ones that we've been introduced to, they're all interesting and likable enough, but I'm not obsessed with any of them. I think we don't really know enough about them yet. We've only really gotten their outlines and, you know, the role that they're supposed to fulfill in certain relationships and within the kingdom, but we don't really know them personally. We don't know their personality and their character. So I'm not super attached to anybody right now, but I definitely am incredibly intrigued by the political system that they're talking about in here. There are charters, which I assume, or from my understanding, talks about different sectors in the economy. So each charter has a charter holder who is basically in charge of that specific area of trade, so like gold or horses or banking. And there is a scene that I've been reading, or I just finished reading, about like kind of the annual general meeting, if you will, where all of the charter holders meet alongside the king and the queen. No, not the queen, alongside the king, and kind of discuss matters of trade within their system and any problems that they've been facing. And we kind of see a hint in this scene of some issues. So I'm not too sure of it geographically, but in another kingdom nearby, there is like some issue with bandits and people stealing their supplies, and that seems like it'll be a big deal. It also, the place that we're talking about, called Saith, I think, they have a princess who the king and the queen want the prince to marry, but he doesn't want to marry, maybe at all, or definitely not her. We're not entirely sure what his game is. He's kind of hard to figure out, to be honest, but we know for a fact that he's not really interested. He's not jumping at the chance to make this allegiance with Saith through that marriage. So we're also learning a little bit about that. And yeah, I feel like the politics in this is definitely what has me hooked so far, and I'm really enjoying it. This is the book that I'm currently reading. And then we have my beautiful favorite author and series. This is the final installment of the Beartown series by Fredrik Backman. This is the Winners. I've had it since it came out. I'm having a really hard time reading this one, and honestly, one feels a little bit different than the first two, but it feels the same. It has that same nostalgic found family, small town love and appreciation for each other, and difficulties and human condition feels, but I think the storyline feels different. So it's been kind of hard to get into, And aside from that, it just makes me very emotional being in this world, especially because I know what happens, because it's said in the beginning of the book. So I kind of just don't want to get to that point and see how it ended up happening. So it's been a very difficult book for me to read, to be honest, but I do want to finish it. I want to round out the series so I can start rereading it maybe. And I don't know, I want to finish it and I just have not. So I also started this one, so I'm 200 pages into this one, but this one is a 700 page book. So these last 3 books that I've shown are very long, so wish me luck on those. So that's what we're going to be attempting to do this year. There will be no 24-hour reading challenges or anything to finish these TBRs. I have nothing to do during the day aside from workout, so we have ample time during the waking hours of the day. So I hope that's not what you're expecting, but that is the TBR for this video. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first book that we're gonna read is Swordcatcher, or Finish. This one, to keep it short and sweet, this one is about Kel and Kel and Lynn. So Kel is an orphan and he was recruited by the kingdom of Castellane, which is where this whole book is set. And he was recruited in when he was very young, and he is basically, his role is to be a sword catcher for the prince, which means that he has to act as though he's the prince in any kind of public appearance that the prince should be making, and some sort of magic kind of disguises him, but he does have a likeness to the king or to the prince, so he makes public appearances for him, and his purpose is basically to protect and to make sure that no harm actually falls on the prince, so to catch his swords, for lack of a better word. And Lynn is Ashka. So in Castellane they used to have a lot of high magic and they don't anymore, so the Ashka are people who still kind of have a little bit of practice of magic, but it's still not to the extent that it used to be. So Lynn is a physician. Essentially, she and Kel are the main characters of the book, but their paths haven't really crossed that much. She saved his life one time, and then she met him again after that because of a mutual connection both of them have with a crime lord in the city whose name is the Rag Picker King, and he's basically like the king of organized crime in Castellane, and he has reached out to both of them individually for help. And I'm not really sure what he wants with Lynn, but with Kel, and this is kind of where we are at in the book. I don't want to talk about everything that happened in the book up until now because we would be here forever, but I'm really enjoying it. I haven't picked this camera up for this specific vlog in a little bit, but I do have a few reading updates. So I finally finished Swordcatcher last night. As I said, do not look at the cover, but this was so good. This is the first 5-star read I've had in such a long time. I loved it so much, and I'll go a little bit more into detail, but for right now what I want to do is give you a reading update on the book that I'm reading right now. Oh, I also finished Dear Mr. Henshaw last night. So I was probably 10% through Dear Mr. Henshaw last night, and I just kind of knocked it out. And it was cute. It was a short story, probably like 130-ish pages, and it was cute. It was like middle grade, I think, so it wasn't hard to read, and it was a quick read, and it was really sweet. This was amazing. I loved this so much, and we'll talk about that. But what I'm reading right now is City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. So I am doing very well on my TBR. I would say I've only read books that are on my TBR, except for one Christmas book that I started but I didn't finish. So yeah, I've been eating this up. I've been loving it a lot more than I expected, which is always good when I kind of go into a book with decently low expectations and then I'm pleasantly surprised, because I am pleasantly surprised. I'm not like obsessed with New York like a lot of people are. I don't really even like New York. No offense to New York, but it's just not my kind of scene. But this book and the way that it's described in this book and romanticized, it makes it seem like it's the most magical place in the world. I'm loving the writing, and honestly, there's just something special about this book that is in the narrative voice, I think, where it really does feel, because we're following this main character, Vivian, who is like a very privileged 19-year-old girl, and she gets kicked out of college and is sent to New York to live with her very eccentric theater. Right, she has to stay with her aunt in New York, and the voice of it sounds very, very specific. Like, the character of Vivian is so clear in our minds that I know that this is literally Vivian and how she thinks and how she would speak. Yeah, I didn't get to update a lot yesterday, but I am on chapter 8 of City of Girls, and I'm loving it so far. I didn't realize that this was going to touch on the World War One at all, but it is, and I'm really interested to see World War One from the perspective of a New York rich, privileged socialite 19-year-old girl in this story, because you could tell that Vivian in the future is telling this story retrospectively, and she's reflecting on the things that she should have cared about more, and she should have, paid more attention to and respected more, rather than thinking that the world really revolved around her and how fun of a time she had. And so this is really interesting to read as a perspective, as I was talking about yesterday, because it's not just from like a highly intelligent woman and somebody who has seen many things and grown in wisdom, but it is from also somebody who's young at heart and who still kind of lives in 1940s New York. And it's just, I'm eating it up. I'm loving this so much. Okay, vlog, hello. So I have not much of an update. I've been reading City of Girls all afternoon, and I'm on page 282 now, and I'm still loving it. I am thoroughly enjoying this book, and I don't know if it's quite 5 stars, but if it continues the way that it is and it gets even better, it definitely could be one of my favorite books of the year, which is so surprising, because then that would be the second book that I've read in this vlog at the very end of the year, in like the 3rd week of December, that has like skyrocketed to the top of my list. So, not to jinx it, knock on wood obviously, but yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot still. And I also wanted to give you a little more comprehensive thoughts on Swordcatcher. So, oh, and okay, let me briefly talk about Dear Mr. Henshaw because that's shorter. It was honestly a young adult / middle grade about this boy who wants to be an author, and he keeps writing letters to his favorite author and kind of discussing his feelings and his thoughts towards his parents getting a divorce. And I honestly thought it was a really sweet story. I loved the voice of it, like the medium that the story was told through. I love anything with like letters or any sort of diary entries, or I can't remember the word for that, but I really loved the way it was told. And yeah, honestly, I wasn't really that attached. I did tear up a little bit at the end, but it was good. I think maybe if I had to rate it, I would give it 3.5. It was really short and I didn't get that connected, but I definitely felt for him and it was a sweet story. Swordcatcher, however, I've been reading this book since June, possibly May, and I honestly have not picked it up since June. So since I started my internship, I didn't pick it up, but I absolutely loved this book. I loved all three of the main characters. I would say there are two main characters, Lynn and Kel, but I think Connor is also a main character, the prince, and he is a sassy man if I ever did see one. He and Kel are both extremely sassy, but in a really good way. Like, it always has a good reason, like it's always justified, their attitude. And I just really enjoyed learning their story and kind of seeing what their lives are like and the way that they approach difficulties within the kingdom, and especially this impending doom that is kind of circling the city right now, and the castle to be specific. I feel like it's really interesting to see their individual approaches to it. I thought that we could have gotten a little bit more of Lynn and her story. It was a little bit confusing to kind of differentiate Lynn's story from, not just, okay, I won't say anything, but her story was very connected to the goddess of Ashkar. So I think her name was, I can't remember, but the Ashkari goddess and Lynn's stories are very connected. I thought that maybe we could have gotten a little bit more of Lynn on her own, but I really did enjoy the story, and I think that this series has a lot of potential for me to absolutely love it. I gave it 5 stars. Maybe it is more 4.5, but honestly, I just really loved it, and I think for what I think it may be, and for the way that I enjoyed it, I will honor my thoughts and feelings when I finished this book. And I loved it from the very beginning as well. It's just that I got extremely busy, and even with like 6 months in between the first half and the second half of this book, everything still made sense. I felt like the story was so vivid in my mind, and yeah, I really enjoyed this book. So those are my reading updates for right now, I think. Hello vlog, it's been a few days. It's the Christmas season. It's currently Christmas Eve, so it's just been so much running around, but I did in fact obviously finish City of Girls, and I loved it even more than I was loving it the last time I updated you. I don't know if you could tell, I dogged so many of the pages. I don't know, I don't really have a super strong emotional attachment to this book or anything. I just love the way it was written. I think it was written so well. Also, please don't look at my nails. I am currently awaiting my appointment, but yeah, I love the way that it was written. I really love the main character and the growth that she had and the kind of very full-hearted acceptance of who she is and humanity, and like her freedom to be herself and her acceptance and understanding of herself in that. I thought that the exploration of her character, and as the tagline says, you could be a good person without being a good girl, and like she is very promiscuous, and you know, she talks a lot about it, and she's never really settled down or had a relationship, and she hasn't really conformed in a lot of ways, especially from the society that she grew up in. But she's just had such a full and beautiful and meaningful life, and her relationships her relationships, although non-conformist, are so meaningful and deep and sweet, and I don't know, it honestly does show that kind of the older you get, the less normality means, and just once you are happy and content within yourself and the life that you live, everything is going to be okay. And I thought that the ending of this was so sweet. I had like goosebumps for the whole last page, because like there's nothing groundbreaking in this book. I will say it's not a groundbreaking book, but it was such a human, and like, oh my god, I loved this. Needless to say, I if I am to give it a rating, 5 stars. I really love this, and I'm glad that I had the foresight to put this in my 2024 favorites video before I finished this, because top 5 possibly. I didn't have that much foresight, but this book was so good. I will think about it forever. Hello vlog. So it's been a few days. I've been so horrible about keeping up with this vlog, but I am now reading, and I have been reading this for a considerable amount of time. I'm about, I want to say almost halfway through. I'm trying to find my page. I'm on page 380. This is a 700-page book, so I'm a little over halfway now, and I am absolutely loving this. I have been putting this off for so long. I got this very soon after its release. As you can tell by it being a hardcover, I'm not really a hardcover type of girl, but I got it very soon after. My now fiance got it for me for my birthday last year, and I've just been staring at it. I've tried reading it a few times. Every time I picked it up, I just started to cry and hyperventilate. For the betterment of my mental health, I just kind of put it down and didn't complete it while I was in school and stuff. But I don't know, I was reading a chapter in this like 3 days ago. Oh, it's Boxing Day today, so Merry Christmas, Happy Boxing Day, Happy Holidays, all the things. But yeah, I was reading a chapter of this a few days ago, and I was literally, my fiance was on the bed and I'm on my like reading chair. I was hyperventilating, and he was like, girl, what is going on with you over there? But yeah, I don't know, this book, and nothing extremely sad has even happened yet. I know it will, but nothing extremely sad has happened yet. It's just the way that Fredrik Backman writes, and the way I'm so attached to these characters, even the brand new characters that he introduced into the story in this book. So heavily attached to them. The scene that I was crying the most for was a scene with these brand new characters. So I was like, I don't even really know these people. I don't know them. Like, they're brand new to my life. Why am I crying? But he got me. So yeah. I am covered in skincare right now, so please ignore it. But I'm reading Backman right now, and I am on chapter 68. I haven't made that much progress because it's been Christmas and Boxing Day and all of the holiday festivities, etc. So I haven't read that much, but I am crashing out, for literal lack of a better word. I'm crashing out because from the beginning of this book we've been told that something is going to happen to a certain character, and like, you know, it will be the end of their story and whatever. And I am actually not mentally prepared for that, and it's taken me so long to read this book because I knew what it was about and I knew what was going to happen. But now that I'm here, and like there are moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good and I love it so much and I'm so excited and I'm just like having a time, you know. I'm not having a good time. I'm not okay with whatever is going to happen in this book. If everybody else has a happy ending and there's one unhappy ending, I will not be okay. So I don't even know if I could finish this book, like, at all. I don't know. And this is me being non-dramatic and just completely honest. I don't know if I could finish this book because I really don't know. But that is my update right now. I'm on chapter 68 of Backman, probably about 65% of the way through, I'm not sure. And I'm calling it a night. I'm going to bed.
Experience. Big advertisement. If an accident does happen, I hope it kills me. Because I don't think I would be a very inspiring disabled person.
Okay, forgive me if you can hear my fiance playing game outside, but I'm almost done with Backman. I'm on page 600 out of 700. And I'm really loving it. I'm really loving it. Is it too long? Yes. I feel like at this point we're dragging on a little bit, and it is kind of taken away from the story. At first it wasn't really taken away from the story, and I was kind of enjoying seeing where it's going, but it is kind of dragging now, and I feel like my emotions, I feel like I'm on a roller coaster. My emotions get built up so high, and then it kind of goes right back down for a really long period of time, and then it goes back up again. So I feel like I'm being tossed and turned everywhere, but I'm really enjoying it. I do, obviously, as I've said in an earlier clip, have great anxiety about what is going to happen to one of my favorite characters in this book. And yeah, and we keep getting told about this character's fate. We keep getting told about this character's fate, but we never really see it happen, and I just feel like, I don't know. I don't know. My heartstrings are being pulled a little bit. I'm kind of ready for it to be done and to see where the story goes and what the final say is about all of these characters and these towns. But oh my gosh, I'm nervous. I am nervous. Okay, so I just recorded my review of The Winners by Fredrik Backman, and it didn't record, so this is take 2, I guess. And I got maybe all of my babbling and crying out of the way, so this will be way more succinct. I read this, I finished it a few days ago, and I just needed some time to think about it because I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. I'm a huge Beartown trilogy fan. I'm a huge Fredrik Backman fan in general, and so I had a lot of expectations going into this. One being that it was going to absolutely destroy my heart and leave me heartbroken, which it did. And then I put it down for a year and came back to it. And when I came back to it, I did have a lot of feelings and I did cry, obviously, but it didn't destroy me the way that I thought that it was going to initially. So I mean, if you're in a position like me where you're kind of nervous to read it, maybe take a step back to it when you feel a little bit more prepared to, 1, let go of this world, and 2, let go of some characters. And so yeah, that's my warning for you. But I have a mere 2 qualms with this book, and I've had little to none for the first 2, so obviously this is my least favorite of the trilogy, which is obviously a little bit sad to say because I do love it so much and I love Fredrik Backman so much. But 1, I thought that a particular death in this book was really ruined for us by the author. I thought that it should not have been told to us from so early on that it was going to happen, and I think maybe a little more subtle foreshadowing might have been the better play in this scenario. Obviously, I'm not an author, but I think that it kind of took away the impact of when it really did finally happen. So yeah, I really didn't like that, and I have more to say, but it's fine. That was my first issue. My second issue was, and the reason I'm saying the issues first is because this is an anticipated or projected 5-star read, if you will, 6-star even, because both of the first 2 books were 5-star reads, 2 of my absolute favorite books of all time. And so I wanted to go in first with saying why this is not on par with the others for me, but not to say that it's a bad book by literally any means. I loved it to death, but it just wasn't perfect. So the second issue that I had with it is that I do feel like it was a bit too long and kind of got repetitive in certain areas. I think I kind of understand and empathize with Fredrik Backman in that he just probably didn't want to let go of the story and the characters, and this just, you could tell how much love he poured into it from not only an author's perspective, but just as a person. I feel like you kind of see who he is through these books and his values and his kind of outlook on life, and it feels like a love story to women and young girls and the experiences that we are faced with all the time. It also feels like a love story to hockey and sportsmanship and teams and community and just kind of understanding for your fellow man. It does feel like he just has a lot of wisdom and he has a lot of love and care for not only these characters but just the world in general. And so I could completely understand that he just, I feel, had a really hard time letting go of this series, as many of us did, me included. I did have a really hard time letting go, and obviously I wasn't too bummed about having 700 pages of Beartown before we kind of closed the book on it forever, but I do feel like it made the story a little bit too slow, and I think again, with my first issue, I think it took some of the impact away from certain moments because it just felt very dragged on. At a certain point, it could have probably gone 150, 200 pages less for me, but those are my only 2 issues. Other than that, it was beautiful and amazing and perfect, and I loved it, and I was so happy and emotional to be back in the Beartown universe because I just love it so much. And I don't know, Beartown is one of the books that makes me feel like content creation is something that I really want to do, and not for any other reason but to give somebody else their favorite book, you know, because I do remember I was recommended this book by an Instagram, is it a Bookstagrammer? Yeah, by a Bookstagrammer all those years ago when I read it the first time, and she has no idea, but that book, that one recommendation she did, made me pick it up, and it's my favorite book and my favorite series of all time and my favorite author possibly of all time. And so if I could do that for somebody else, that's a life well lived to me. So I don't know, I have a really soft spot and it has a special place in my heart. The whole series is a 5-star series and I think everybody should read it, and it's so important and moving and emotional, and I loved all of the new characters he brought into this book. I think plot wise it left me wanting a little bit more movement in it, but other than that, the quotes and just the emotions and the way that he describes humans and relationships, perfect and poignant as literally always. So for 4.5 stars, I'm not really sure yet, but I feel bad rating this book at all because it's so important to me. It's like my friend, and so I just feel a little bit weird rating this book specifically, but the series as a whole, 6 stars, perfect. And I think if I never recommended anything else, please read Beartown by Fredrik, Backman, the entire series. Okay, and to quickly round up this video, the second to last book that I read, City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert, 5 stars. I've said everything I need to say. The narrative voice in this was absolutely perfect. Some of the quotes in this, oh, what is this fuzz? I don't know. Loved it so much. I think about it very, very often. So I also recommend this. Then Swordcatcher, still excuse the cover, 5 stars as well. So I found 2 5 stars and a 4.5 stars. I also read Dear Mr. Henshaw. I really only read it because I don't know if you know the movie Stuck in Love. I love that movie, like an unhealthy amount. It's so good, and they talk about that book in that movie. So I read it, I watched it recently, and I just wanted to watch it. I mean, I'm confusing myself. I wanted to read the book because of the movie, and I did. It was cute, it was sweet. 3 stars maybe, 3.5, but nothing that I would really think about that much anymore. I do see how it can be really impactful to a younger person though, and possibly even somebody who would relate to the character more. So maybe an aspiring author or a young person or somebody who has gone or like been a child of divorce at any point. And so yeah, I really enjoyed it. I don't regret reading it at all, but it wasn't, you know, as amazing as these other 3 books that I read in this vlog. So that brings us to the end of this really long vlog. It is now 2025, so thank you all for watching and happy 2025, and I'll see you soon.